we're not finding bottom of the barrel talent from the Philippines. Like these are people that we're paying above average for these positions. We're still saving compared to a US based person, but there's amazing talent that we can find, and I think we're trying to eat our own dog food in that way, right? Like we're literally proving that, hey, we've staffed our entire company with the same approach. So like you can obviously do this for your company.
Wanna cause no problems. I just wanna live my life, but I keep on hearing about nonsense. Me and my dons ain't mobsters, but you know when you see imposters, we know how to read them faces, same way you know how to read them comments. If you wanna talk, let's talk, but around here, make sure you walk and your talk is constant.
Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Death of Vanilla podcast, where we're all about just sharing what's different, what's not vanilla that's happening in your business that makes you different, makes you stand out. And I'm excited to be jumping back in the podcast with Tyler here. And this is like our inaugural reopening of the Death of Vanilla podcast. So I'm excited to share this with you, excited to kick it off with you. And so feel free to just introduce yourself. Feel free to brag, pat yourself on the back, whatever. This is the time to do it. Great. And just tell us a little bit about yourself and Coconut VA.
Yeah, Tyler Leber, based in Arizona, and we've got Coconut VA. We've been running that for about 3 years. We actually rebranded recently just to Coconut. We can't get coconut.com yet. It's about $1 million, but hopefully someday soon. But yeah, we've been running that for 3 years and still growing.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's actually funny that you mentioned that because literally today I saw someone else on your team post and it just Coconut. Oh, really? But like when you guys do a super good job of like tagging your business in your post, which is a phenomenal strategy. Yeah. And I was like, wasn't this Coconut VA like literally like days ago?
Yes, it was. It really was. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So tell us a little bit. So like most people watching this podcast will probably already know who a VA is, but just unpack it briefly. What is a VA? What are you guys actually providing as a service?
Totally. Yeah. And VA is probably not the best term, or it's kind of a limiting term. Some people even think of like Amazon Alexa or Siri as a virtual assistant, more on the virtual aspect, right? Yes. But historically, and what we've been using recently is more as an outsourced assistant or personal assistant is what a lot of people think of as well. But again, it's pretty limiting. So we are more just a staffing agency. We'll find people in the Philippines to fill pretty much any remote role at any company. We don't really have much limitation in terms of like industry or anything like that. We've called ourselves like the Indeed before of like hiring from the Philippines. And we're just the staffing agency. We match make basically talent to company.
Right. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I know like my experience with hiring a VA, which is far before I met you, was, I kind of thought about it from like a Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week kind of thing. And so in my brain, my like worldview of a VA was someone who basically did like simple admin tasks, you know what I mean? Or bought gifts for people, booked appointments. Right. Like, so imagine my surprise when I hired like a full on video editor. And I was like, that's a VA? I call that a video editor, but okay. But that's kind of, so it's a broad definition for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
As far as like, I know this is kind of like a ethereal big question, but like, why does Coconut exist? Like what did you see in the world that like you felt like this was going to solve and motivated you to do all the hard work of starting your own business instead of jumping in somewhere else?
Yeah. I mean, first off, like this is, I guess, technically my third business that I've started, really my second big business that I've started. The first one we exited from around 2020, 2021. And around that time is when we obviously were kind of looking to what are we going to do next? It wasn't a life-changing exit. It was a nice exit, but definitely not life-changing by any means. And so we knew we needed to come up with something, right? Yeah. And so we used virtual assistants. We used talent from the Philippines a lot in our previous company. And a lot of our clients would ask like, oh, okay, who made this report for me? Who made this research report? And we would, introduce our team member who was from the Philippines. Right. Like, well, how do I hire them, right? Like, and so we would get those questions a lot in that previous company. And so that's where we started our search was what can be done differently in that space? Could we actually build a company that is doing, things that nobody else is, or can we stand out? And what we noticed is honestly, the branding, the positioning of, the brand voice really is where we thought we could stick out in this staffing space. We saw a lot of other staffing companies, like BPO is the classic term and industry in the Philippines of what you'll hear. And that's like Capital One, U.S. Bank customer service reps. Like they have massive customer service, buildings, right? And just people will be doing customer service work there. And that's like the typical staffing agency. It's more corporate feeling, and it caters to that industry and that client. And so we've been working with founders since the beginning. So we wanted to build something that was more attractive to founders. And so we decided to do Coconut VA, where in the early days, we actually used vacation laptopless as one of our slogans. So basically trying to help founders delegate more or less. Like, hey, founder, you don't have to be wearing all the hats. Like you can find affordable help outside of yourself or, your family or wife or whatever. You can find affordable help outside of just yourself, even in those early days. We've pivoted a little bit since then, where we focus on slightly bigger companies, just because that's a little bit a more sustainable business model.
Sure.
But that's definitely where that Coconut vibe came from, is trying to combat that corporate feel of other agencies.
Yeah. So do you find that you still work with founders who are continuing to delegate, or have they actually delegated their entire team and now you're actually hiring VAs for middle management?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so we definitely still focus a lot on founders. Like that's usually still our main client. They're not so big that they have like their own hiring department or that they've delegated everything.
Sure.
They're still wearing a few hats, for sure. But yeah, more and more we're hiring executive assistants for the executive team, which isn't a full-fledged team yet, but definitely the founder, maybe the COO, maybe the CMO, and executive assistant is our most commonly placed role. But again, we'll fill pretty much any role in any company. And I think our company is actually a great example. Like we only have the 3 U.S.-based founders in the U.S. Everybody else on our team is based in the Philippines.
Oh, really?
That
Okay.
includes like our CEO. She runs the entire day-to-day operations of the company. If you hop on a sales call with us, you're going to hop on with Judy or Zoe, and they're based in the Philippines. But they have amazing English, and they're not. And that's one topic I'd love to go over at some point. But we're not finding bottom of the barrel talent from the Philippines. Like these are people that we're paying above average for these positions. We're still saving compared to a U.S. based person, but there's amazing talent that we can find, and I think we're trying to eat our own dog food in that way, right? Like we're literally proving that, hey, we've staffed our entire company with the same approach. So like you can obviously do this for your company.
For sure. Yeah, it's like I've hired a couple different VAs from the Philippines actually, and it's been largely positive experiences. You got to vet people just like anything else.
Totally.
It's not like because you go to the U.S., like all of a sudden now everyone's awesome at their job. Right. That is hardly the case. But there's great people, and it's like you could literally hire someone who has a degree for like what you wouldn't even pay someone to flip a burger here.
Oh, for sure.
And like they're like super qualified. They're more educated than I am, and it's dude, this is crazy.
No, same. We have a bar certified lawyer on our team.
Yeah,
she's not doing law right now, but yeah, she's bar certified, and she's on our team crushing it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love the globalization of talent. It's a win for everyone, and it's. Anyway, so as far as like, is it so, not to put words in your mouth, but it sounded like what you were explaining was that your focus on founders is a differentiator. Yeah. Okay. So then definitely. Is there any way like, so in practice, do you like prepare or vet, or like what's your process in making sure that these are the best fit for founders?
Yeah, definitely.
I know that might be a challenging question. But
I mean, it is to some degree. Like, it depends, right? Yeah. Like, that's the best answer, obviously, in all cases. But, like one prime example is executive assistants. Like, that's what we most commonly place with founders, our most common customer. And so, there's a lot of different ways that we can vet them. Every single applicant that comes through our system, we do, all the typical stuff, resumes. We'll also throw in some personality tests as well. Because a lot of the founders that we deal with, my go-to question for founders is, how many unread emails do you have in your inbox? And that's always such a telling question, right? Because you get some people that are more on the operator integrator side that 0 or less than 10 usually.
That's me.
There you go, and that's me as well. But literally, I'd say 70 to 80% of the other people, it's like 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. Like I've had, I think, 3 people that have over 100,000 unread emails in their inbox.
That makes me slightly sick to my stomach.
Yeah, I don't know how you survive that. But those are the people we deal with.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do need to tailor it to the individual. And so we'll do personality tests. We'll do that same question on the VA side of, how organized are you? How many unread emails do you have in your inbox? How do you categorize emails? How do you, manage your own calendar? And then, the personality test, Rocket Fuel, that's a great methodology that we've used in the past. Like,
very nice.
Operator and visionary, integrator and visionary. And so, there's a ton of different tests, and even hiring tasks we'll do as well. So, this person might have a certain, like our previous company, we did a lot of market research reports.
Yeah.
And so we'll do hiring tasks of, hey, how would you segment this data? And, here's a 5-minute tutorial on how to do it. Try out the task for 20 minutes and we'll see how you do. Just a very basic idea of how they work.
Yeah. Definitely got to do that because it's all talk until you perform the work.
Right, exactly.
Well, I love that. I love how intentional all that feels of just like being in both the founder's seat yourself and being your primary client, that like there's a level of familiarity with what needs to happen from a job that you're able to provide by making sure those people can do those things.
Right.
So as far as like from the growth side, so I don't know what you are or not willing to share as far as like how your growth has been, but we've talked about privately, it's been really, really good. So what has been like the primary driver of growth for you guys? Like you have probably your business experience, so maybe you learned something in the past you brought in or whatever else, but I'd love to hear like what has been like the real, like the most impactful thing for your business growth from a sales perspective.
Yeah, and I'm very transparent about it. I've been posting on LinkedIn for 2-3 years now, and like I try to do it almost every day or at least every week, even in the slow times. And that actually was a huge driver of growth, especially in the beginning, was being authentic on LinkedIn.
Sure,
I think that's what most people crave these days, right? Is that authenticity.
Yeah.
And maybe especially in our industry where it is fairly competitive, a lot of people get cold emails, cold calls, unsolicited LinkedIn messages.
All the time,
right? So, can you really differentiate yourself that much by, putting a percentage here, an emoji in the subject line, all of these little tweaks you can do. Or you can do an entirely different approach, which is what we went after, which was more of a content-based approach. And so I hardly ever post about virtual assistants on my LinkedIn. And my co-founders, same thing. Like they just post about founder life, founder struggles, what we've done to build the company. Again, not specific to our offering, but that content inevitably actually leads to sales because people are just learning more about us and then they're familiar with who we are. They get to know us over time. We're building that interpersonal, relationship or parasocial relationship. And so, in the early days, our business was like 50% LinkedIn content, and then the other 50% was word of mouth. And I think that's a pretty good split. You want people to be raving about what you're offering. But of course you need net new audience as well. And that content really helped us. And then nowadays we're trying to differentiate that some more. So we've been doing a lot of more value adds. So like webinars, we've been doing about 10 webinars per month with different partners that have a similar target market, a similar audience. And then just saying, hey, what do these people need? Let's pitch them some value, with no expectation, no commitment. And then again, by doing that, we actually have quite a few people that say, hey, this was great content. Sometimes we can build it into, hey, like here's how you, do cold email, or here's how you reach out to investors. And then we can say, well, and this is what you would delegate to a virtual assistant if you had one.
Right.
And then it's like, well, I would like one. That's great. Okay, you can do it now.
Hi there, Stephen here, the host of the Death and Vanilla podcast, and I wanted to take a second to step away from our conversation and tell you a little bit about our sponsor, and unsurprisingly, my own company, Burkhart Creative Agency. A lot of business owners pride themselves in their word-of-mouth growth, and while that is a powerful marketing tool, the businesses that we work with are looking to scale, and they can't afford to wait for someone to tell their next-door neighbor about their company in the hope that one day that might become a client. Why would you put the future of your company's growth in a process that you have no control over? Businesses that are looking to scale, are looking to increase their volume of customers in their existing market and or expand into other verticals, but have limited resources, time, and skills to do it. Bringing in an in-house team is expensive. It takes a lot of time, and they still not be able to strategically execute to get your company in front of the right people. Burkhart Creative Agency provides information the business owners like you can use to make data-driven decisions through a combination of market research, statistics, and a deep understanding of your business so that the marketing videos created are the most effective for moving a business towards its revenue goals. All of this resting on over a decade of video production experience. If you want to move forward this year with confidence, knowing that you have a plan, that you're in control of where your business is heading, and you have the videos that can make that happen, schedule a time. There's a link below. Click on it. Schedule a time with me. We have a no pressure phone call where we just see if we're a good fit, to see if we want to move forward or not. Let's get back to the show. Suggest everything so they feel so overwhelmed they have
exactly,
no choice.
Right? Yeah. Try not to do too much of that. But
Right. Yeah.
It does work.
No, that makes sense. I mean, that's like, from my perspective, because I'm like very much into like Donald Miller building a story brand and so on and so forth, like being able to speak to your ideal client in a way that makes them feel heard is huge. I mean, like I think back even to like my retail days where it's like someone comes in and they complain about something. Yeah. They really just want someone to care and feel heard, and the way you feel heard, like any argument or a challenge communicationally, is just repeating back what they said, and they go, oh, they understood what I was trying to communicate. Totally. And so by having like the founder life type content, it makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean? You're speaking to the founders. They feel understood. They feel heard. They know that you know the things. Yeah. And by that, you become a trusted partner. So that's awesome. I'm glad this worked out. Content is challenging.
It is challenging.
Even as someone who makes it. So on the flip side, what has been like the biggest challenge with sales? Like, has there been like things that you tried that just didn't work out, or like things you're maybe even currently in the midst of testing that you'd be willing to share? Yeah,
totally. I mean, especially early on, like I said, we were focusing on pretty small founders, right? And they would have, just themselves or maybe a team of like 5 up to 5 people. Yeah. And that's difficult because, we want to help those people. They're in a position where they need a lot of help, but the sale is difficult because they don't have a lot of cash usually. And if they have funding, it's not a lot of funding, or they're going to be running out of funding eventually, right? Sure. And so the churn was pretty high with that clientele. And it's always tough because it's a target market that you really want to serve, you really want to help. But
bleeding heart, for sure.
Yeah, but it's also not really the moneymaker. Yeah. So we have gone more up market over time, where they have probably at least $500K of annual revenue, but they're still fairly small. They still need a lot of help. They're still building out their team for sure. And then so we can step in and say, hey, we'll hire somebody for you, deal with all of that hiring and overseas payroll and everything. Will take care of all of that headache. That problem is still very potent for them. Yeah. Whereas even bigger founders, it might not be as big of an issue at some point because now they have a hiring team or a hiring coordinator or human resource manager. Like they've already got that infrastructure built out. So I think there is really a sweet spot where we can definitely play a part.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So obviously there's probably a lot of factors that go into it, but like, so are you saying that like, for people who are listening, they're like, oh, am I ready? I don't know if I'm ready. Like, obviously they should reach out to you, but like, is that $500K a pretty solid indicator that like you're ready? Like where, I mean, I guess I'm curious just personally, like where is the breakdown? Let's say you're making like 350, right? Instead of 500. Like, is it just that like everyone you hire should make you money? Right. So theoretically, like you should be fine, but like where is the investment / the payoff piece breaking down when you're in that price point?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like 500K is kind of the ideal minimum. We'll actually go down to, even if you have like 100 to 250K of annual revenue, we'll still take you on as a client. Sure. Anything below that, it's like, well, it's just not going to work. Like you need to just get a little bit further. Yeah. And to answer your question, like I would say that the main like driver of whether or not like that relationship is going to be successful or not is more of how much you have built out in terms of systems and processes. So that's one issue that we also ran into with these smaller founders is that they would say, hey, I want to make more money. Let's hire a salesperson. So we would staff them an SDR, but then it's like, hey, go make me money. It's like, okay, well, what do you want me to do? And then they come back 2 weeks later and complain like, well, the SDR you gave me is crap. Like, they haven't done anything. It's like,
right.
Well, what, did you have any systems for them? Do you know what works? Do you know what doesn't work? So a lot of people wouldn't take into account the testing and the testing cost, really, of trying to figure out what works in their market. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just specific to sales, but it also goes for executive assistants as well. Like, there's a certain point where you get to a certain size and you have enough infrastructure built out where we can just plug somebody in, and it makes sense, and they just hit the ground running. But we've noticed that before that revenue amount, it's still a little bit all kind of hectic, pretty up in the air. And those relationships, sometimes they work really well because everything falls into place, but then sometimes nothing falls into place and they just get frustrated.
Yeah, the roller coaster, because ideally income was always going up, but life happens and economy happens and COVID happens or whatever. Whatever. There's things outside of control that can affect that. Yeah. So there's always a little bit of a roller coaster. Well, if the roller coaster is up here,
right, exactly.
That's not such a bad thing. When the roller coaster is like, I can't pay anyone,
exactly,
or we're doing pretty good. That's a rough roller coaster to be on.
It is.
I can speak from experience on that one. So it's definitely challenging, and I could totally see that. I've definitely had very similar challenges. I hire VAs mostly on the video end because of doing video production, and it's something I'm familiar with. I know how to do. I can teach someone from zero to where they need to be. Yep. When it comes to your example of SDRs, what I'm actually needing someone to do is come in and build it for me. Yeah, which is not fair. You know what I mean? That's really not some people can do that, and maybe whatever else, but they're not. People. Yeah, for sure, but they're not they still got to learn about your business and what you're doing. And if you don't know any of the sales things, there's probably plenty of other things about your business that you don't have figured out and don't have clarity on. That's going to make it really hard for them to make the other decisions to bring the clarity.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? If you don't know what your ideal client is, they can't go sell them.
Right.
Which means no matter what system they build, it's not going to serve you well.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get what you pay for as well. I think especially in those early stages, somebody wants to hire a $10 an hour SDR and they want them to build out the entire sales, go to market. And that's not a realistic expectation. So you can find those people. And I think we do staff some of those people at the upper ranges of what we staff is $16 to $24 an hour.
Sure.
And $24 an hour person, they could probably build out, a system for you. They're more like a trailblazer.
Yeah.
But when you get to the lower ends of the range, it's more about somebody coming in and just fulfilling what you've already built for them, that system. Yeah. And then they can run that system forever. So just kind of aligning those expectations.
For sure. Well, yeah. Well, it's I'm, they're either executing or they're building, right? And so that's really the difference. On the lower end, you get a great executor, which could literally be oxygen for your business, or at least for you, especially with an executive assistant, be able to buy back the time. Like you said, I love the example, the laptopless paradise. Laptopless, which is literally such a thing. Yeah. And so I think that's wonderful. As far as you kind of already answered one of my other questions, so I'll jump to this one. As far as from your business experience, both from this one and from something else, what do you think as a business owner, for other business owners who are watching, what has been the biggest lesson that you've learned in growing business? Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of cliches you can use for sure.
Sure.
But
don't. It's death of vanilla.
I was going to say, that's true. Death of vanilla. There you go. Okay. I'll shy away from any of those. But
there you go.
No, I mean, I would say just finding the right people for the right time of your business or of your life. I've worked with a few different, partners, a few different employees. And I think that's definitely the key, is just surrounding yourself with the right people. Because like we talked about with the unread emails, there are people that just have a certain personality. Yeah. And it's you see those deep sea welding jobs, right? To me, that sounds awful and horrible. And somebody else, that sounds exciting and challenging, right?
Yeah.
And then what I do, I'm in spreadsheets all day.
Yeah.
But my co-founder would hate that. That's, a nightmare to him, right? So just finding the right people for the right tasks at the right time. I think that's the key. That's the biggest thing I've learned.
Yeah.
Because I think I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I think a lot of founders do, of wearing all the hats. Like, you hear that all the time. So you also think like, hey, I need to be the best at each one of these. And like, if I can't run this business as like a one-man show, like, I'm not a great founder.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I think a lot of founders suffer under that because they hold themselves to a pretty high standard. And we always try to push back against that. And that was part of the Vacation Laptopless methodology, is like, you don't have to be in your business, like trying to set aside that ego and say, hey, this is what I'm really good at. And, this person could actually take off 20 hours of work, that I'm doing needlessly, right? Like, you might think you have to, but then you realize like, hey, this is a monotonous task. It's not client facing, whatever it might be, that you can outsource to somebody else. Or maybe it's you're coding your own platform, right? And it would be better to just hand that off to somebody. The ROI is going to be bigger by having somebody else do that instead of you.
Yeah. Man, I resonate with that like so much. I was literally journaling about it like yesterday or the day before. Was like, I feel all this pressure that I need to be like smarter and know more and just shove more knowledge into my head. And it's like, man, does like everyone feel this way? Because it's like, totally. I can't be like a marketing analyst and a brand strategist and a videographer and grow my business and train people. And it's like, dude, and then like, and there's like 1,000 books for each one of those categories, 1,000, a million YouTube videos. And it's very like, it ends up becoming self-defeating is what it ends up being. Because you can't be an expert at everything. And when you are, you end up not still being an expert at everything, which is really challenging. But
that's very true.
And to your point too, there was really one really fascinating thing I actually experienced on the very smallest scale, like yesterday. I got off a meeting, and it was for a new client that we brought on, and like I had done pretty much all my tasks for the day, and she was handling pretty much everything because we didn't have much to shoot, so I didn't have much to do, and she was doing some post-production stuff. And I was like, I guess I'm done, And it reminded me of this. I can't remember if it was a video or in one of the books of Mike Michalowicz. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He did like running a business like Clockwork, Surge, Profit First, stuff like that. A lot of like business operating stuff. And he said one of the toughest things a founder experiences is like that loss of being needed. And it feels super like uncomfortable, not only from like an emotional standpoint, but also just like it makes you feel like you should be doing something and you're not. But actually what's happening is the healthiest thing for your business. And
so true.
Man, I can't wait to feel that someday because I'm wearing almost all the hats. No,
and I agree with that. And we've definitely suffered from that many times. Like, we pitch a lot of these principles, but we also suffer from that often of like, you want to feel needed, you want to feel important, you want to feel special, you want to feel like you're the only one that can do that job, or you're the best person for that job. And I think for a few things that's probably true. But I think founders, because most founders, I think, do have to start out wearing all of the hats, but then they just hold on to that for maybe too long, or just get too stuck in that mindset. And then it's hard when they have to like start letting some go. It's like, well, actually, it's kind of hard, right? Emotionally, it's kind of difficult to kind of get back to just what you are good at, because you are trusting now your baby, parts of your baby to other people, and that can be really, really hard to do.
Oh yeah, and there's also all the other complexities come along with that, which is like, how do you teach someone to do the thing that you've been doing, when you don't even remember, like you don't consciously even know the steps that you do.
So true.
Which is so much a part of like, you brought up rocket fuel, but like that whole traction methodology of like putting together your processes is literally just documenting them. Like you're going to sit down and onboard a client, just record it, and like now you have your process, you know, and put it in writing or whatever it is you got to do to train other people. It's like there's so many things you do on autopilot that now you're trying to teach someone else. And I think that's actually one of the challenging things about a VA is like you actually for the first time have to teach someone else how to do a portion of what you do. And that's a skill set.
It is.
But once you do that, it's like all this front-loaded. It's like running a business.
Yeah.
Running a business is a bunch of front-loaded effort that eventually pays off.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with onboarding employees. Like it's, you put a lot of investment and time into the train them, make sure it's the right person, get them, moving, testing them on projects, and all of a sudden it's like, man, I spent all this time. Like I could have just done it myself and it had been faster. I literally hear people tell me that, and it's like, yes, but also think about like 6 months from now.
Exactly.
Do you want to still be doing that same task, or do you want to move into like a money-making task, or just freaking enjoying yourself? Like heaven forbid a founder would enjoy themselves, outside of just slaving away. So
that's so true. I love
cool.
that. Yeah.
So where can people connect with you? So obviously you're huge on LinkedIn, but just if that's a good place, just kind of let them know where you can be found, and or anything you want them to do. Your call to action.
My call to action. Well, so reach out. My email, tyler@coconutva.com. Feel free to email me. I have an executive assistant, so my inbox is pretty clean,
nice,
which is great. But connect with me on LinkedIn, Tyler Leber. I've got a little coconut next to my name, and then also call to action. What we've been trying this out recently, where we do a free trial, so 40 hours of free work basically.
Oh, that's awesome.
We vet somebody for you, pair them up with you. You actually get to work with them for a week full time or 2 weeks part time, and then you get to see if it's a good fit, and if not, totally fine. But if it is, then we get to work together long term.
I like that. Building that confidence.
Exactly.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, thank you all for watching. Appreciate you being a part of this episode. Thank you for being a guest. Thank you for being the one that kicks it all off. I appreciate
excited.
That.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Wanna cause no problems. I just wanna live my life, but I keep on hearing about nonsense. Me and my dons ain't mobsters, but when you see imposters, we know how to read them faces, same way you know how to read them comments. If you wanna talk, let's talk, but around here, make sure you're walking your talk is constant.